समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
While it is only India that still formally calls Operation Sindoor an unfinished business, both countries are seeing this as something of a trailer or a prelude to the next round, not an issue fought to any conclusion. The subcontinent's record tells us that this is not the best place to be in, the place where both sides think that this is not the conclusion, or even one side thinks this is not conclusive, because then there is always a threat to peace and stability going ahead. We have a precedent in the short Kutch conflict starting on April 9, 1965. It continued on in a protracted manner until July 1, until the ceasefire on July 1, but it wasn't as if they was fighting every day. There were short skirmishes and short bursts of fighting in this period in a very distant part of the country, in the run of Kutch. Both sides called truce and brought their forces back in the barracks from Kutch, but the first full-scope India-Pakistan war followed just 5 months later. In fact, from the day it concluded, the next round began in less than 6 weeks. Pakistan launched that war, the 1965 war, learning the wrong lessons from Kutch. We might hope for better sense 6 decades later, but hope isn't a plan or a strategy. It takes a lot for Pakistan to accept defeat, liberation of Bangladesh in 1971, or a clear capitulation in Kargil, for example. Those things will make Pakistanis accept defeat. Anything less inarguably decisive, you can count on them to call victory. And once they psych themselves into, see, we won that little war state of mind and start celebrating, you expect them to come back sooner rather than later. At this point, each side is drawing its own lessons. Just hour before I sat down to write this column, Lieutenant General Rahul Singh, one of the 3 deputy chiefs of army staff, had reflected on some lessons learned and pointers for the future. We recorded an episode of Cut the Clutter where I had Snehesh Alex Philip join me, our defense editor, discussing the takeaways from Lieutenant General Rahul Singh's presentation. This, I would say, what Lieutenant General Rahul Singh said, is good thinking. It's good thinking. At least one side, or the good side, which is us, isn't mindlessly celebrating victory, but thinking ahead, learning its lessons and thinking ahead. This too has parallels with Kutch. India drew its lessons and good lessons more sensibly and realistically, and the result was a strategic victory in this subsequent war. Strategic victory for India in the sense that Pakistan was the only side with an objective, grabbing Kashmir. It was its last chance to grab Kashmir militarily, and it blew it. Pakistan thereby started the war. Pakistan presumed that they had done better in Kutch. That's why India agreed on a ceasefire, and that's the reason it started a full-fledged war where it was denied and forced back on the defensive across the entire frontier. By day 22, it was a 22-day war. Pakistan was pushed back on defensive across the entire frontier, right up north, up to Rajasthan sector. A stalemate with the aggressor and first mover Pakistan on the defensive was like victory for India. In the end, the difference was the lesson the two sides drew from Kutch. India was now preparing for a counter-offensive towards Lahore and Sialkot in case the Pakistanis came in with a larger war plan and pressure on Kashmir mounted. It's a recorded fact that it was sometime in the late summer, or I'd say early monsoon, following the Kutch ceasefire on July 1, that Then Defense Minister Y.B. Chauhan, Home Minister Gulzarilal Nanda, along with top army commanders, met at the 11 Corps headquarters in Jalandhar and conferred on plans to open out new fronts into Pakistani Punjab if needed. This plan, Operation Riddle, was therefore months in the making. This was not meant to capture Lahore or Sialkot. This was to draw away Pakistan's forces from the Kashmir region into self-defense instead of attack. This was a post-Kutch learning and preparation for India. The most succinct and uncomplicated reading I would recommend, there are many books on this, but the most succinct and uncomplicated reading I would recommend is War Dispatches by late Lieutenant General Harbakh Singh, then Western Army Commander. Remember, then there was no Northern Command, so Western Army Commander then included Jammu and Kashmir as well. Kutch is our most forgotten war, though it lasted much longer, from April 9 to July 1. As I told you, it had sporadic skirmishes, not a continuing war, yet it was much longer than the 87 hours of Operation Sindoor. There are parallels, however, in learnings from both. The lesson Pakistan learned from Kutch became its establishment's grandest miscalculation. It concluded that Lal Bahadur Shastri accepted defeat in agreeing to ceasefire and international mediation. That's when Ayub made his famous or infamous remark that in the end, the Hindu morale will not survive more than a couple of hard knocks. That Kutch delusion was just the impetus it needed to launch Operation Gibraltar first, which was massive armed infiltration into Kashmir, and Operation Grand Slam following it, the big armor thrust to take Akhnur and cutting off much of Kashmir next. While we hope and pray for peace and stability now, we have to keep that history in mind. The Pakistani military's brain, I have said multiple times, is not located in its head where it might be for the rest of us mortals. Theirs is located somewhere lower down in their anatomy, and that's a place I'd rather not elaborate on. The nation with the higher stake in peace and progress must prepare for the miscalculations of an adversary who compulsively thinks only tactically. As we had noted in this national interest, see it on your screens, as we had noted in this national interest on May 31, the link, both video and audio, are with you in the description of this video. Asim Munir has limited time. While Pakistan's army will continue to own the country, his own lease over his army is not permanent. In the course of time, probably over the next few months, as soon as the next few months, he will see challenges to his unconstitutional, and if I may add, in fact I must add, uninstitutional power from his uniformed peers and politicians. What's the meaning of uninstitutional? That's important to explain. In the past, Pakistani military dictators have had their army formally take over power as an institution. In this indirect takeover, not only has Asim Munir collected that additional star, he has also grabbed political power as an individual. This is not an institutional power grab. This is more like an individual's power grab. This is too cozy to last. He's the first to know that. That's why you can count on his impatience leading to a new adventure or misadventure. He would think learning erroneously from Sindoor, as his military grandparents did from Kutch, that another skirmish will be good. That India's stakes in stability, in its economic growth, in protecting its economic growth, were too high for it to risk a larger conflict. The big powers will move in. He would think short conflicts like these will keep India off balance, destabilize the Kashmir Valley, but most importantly, protect his own public support. He would think he has got India gamed. A terror attack in Kashmir, the inevitable military response from India, and then a few days of dust-up. It will also keep the region internationalized. His first move with Pahalgam, he would think, succeeded in shifting the world's understanding of the issue in the subcontinent from terrorism to nuclear conflict. So he will think he's got something to work on. We've already told you where in their bodies do their brains rest, not in their heads. We can't time this miscalculation. We don't know when it will come, but it's nearly inevitable. India, therefore, needs a graded plan for 6 months, 2 years, which takes us closer to the next general election, and 5 years respectively. So 6 months, 2 years and 5 years, 3 plans. 5 years should be the deadline for us to build deterrence to a level where this Munir or another one by another name who comes after him won't have the same temptations. In these 6 months, in the next 6 months, India has to fill all the critical gaps in missiles. That's just the numbers, your existing missiles, your holdings. Ammunition, these are consumables. Then sensors and also stockpile in the fastest possible manner the critical instruments that worked this time. BrahMos and Scalp missiles, long-range smart artillery shells, Excalibur category, make the multi-layered air defenses much denser. Naval platforms should also have their vectors topped up and war wastage reserves built. Most of it can be done domestically and on war footing. Remember, we are looking at the next 6 months. It can't be done on the usual acceptance of necessity today and trials 18 months hence. Remember, you said Op Sindoor is not over yet. That is Government of India's position, that Op Sindoor is still continuing, that there might be a suspension, but it's still on. So keep yourself in the same mode and carry out the stopping up operation on the war footing. Over 2 years, India must have at least 2 more. More than that isn't possible, unfortunately. At least 2 more of beyond visual range, that is BVR capable fighters. Long range artillery should be improved and increased to a level that it becomes a pulverizing deterrent in itself. You can have most of it made domestically, and some smart ammunition can be bought from overseas, will need to be bought from overseas. This will be quality with quantity, great combination. And over the next 5 years, that's the third plan, the 5-year plan, begin with upping your defense spending from 1.9 to 2.5% of GDP over the next 3 years, and then keeping there for the following 2. It will be a stretch, but India can afford it. Our national resolution has to be that if we get these 5 years, there will never be an occasion when India will be outranged, outgunned, or outwatched in a conflict with Pakistan, even for a few hours, despite the Chinese, or never mind the Chinese. Focus on the economic growth, diplomacy, and alliances alongside. All of that goes on alongside. That goes without saying. But you cannot do any of this. You cannot achieve any of this without guaranteeing your own security. I'd borrow the advice to India from Israeli Ambassador Reuven Azar at ThePrint OTC conversation last Monday. Strengthen your defense and liberalize your economy, he said, because he elaborated, for investors to come in, they have to have the confidence that your defense is strong and impregnable. To think that this is a strategic lean back period will be an unforgivable historic blunder. This is a lean forward, all hands on the deck moment. The success of Op Sindoor is something to savor, but more importantly, it's impetus for the future.